You're gonna catch me in a Jedi cloak drinking blue milk somewhere, bro, like with a lightsaber.
Why don't we start with the honorable mentions? Because the whole thing is they're not.
Mm,
I mean, they're not quite 10 out of 10, but
yeah, yeah. I was gonna suggest doing those first.
yeah. Let's knock those out of the way. And I want to make sure to just make the point that these are in no particular order for me. I don't know
Yeah,
about
me
you
either.
either. Like, I'm not
Yeah,
saying, oh, well, I read this one first, so it's better than the next one. No, that's not the deal. These are just 5 movies that I think are perfect movies, and that's it. No particular order. I think they're all perfect movies.
100%.
So I just hit record there a second ago, so
Okay. So again, it has begun. Right.
it has begun. Welcome back to the Silver Screen Banter Podcast. I'm Eric.
And I am Michael.
Today we're talking about 10 out of 10 movies, perfect movies in our opinion. Like,
Yes.
there's going to be some on here that, like, if you go look at Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb score, Google score, wherever you get your fucking ratings from,
All
they're
right.
not going to be perfect, but to me it's a perfect movie. Same, I
Right.
assume same goes for you.
Yeah. So
um,
we're doing 5 of them. Correct?
yeah,
Uh,
5 perfect movies, but we will have 2 honorable mentions, and those honorable mentions could be things we also think are perfect or things that we think are really close.
yeah.
So man, if you want to kick it off with one of your honorable mentions, what do you got?
All right, and this won't be a popular opinion, but I am going with James Cameron's first Avatar. That is to me, it's a movie that is long as hell, and I never. It doesn't feel long to me. Anytime I put that movie on, I'm there for the duration, and I'm in front of the TV for the duration. I
Okay,
think
when you said you don't think it'll be a popular opinion, do you mean because you think it's not perfect, or because some people think that it's not even
there's a
close?
lot of hate for Avatar. A lot of people that just for some reason are just like, this is trash. It's a copy of this, it's a copy of that. And it's like you can look at any movie, anytime and say, well, there are elements of this in there. There are elements of that in there. And it's like, yes, it is an older type of story, but you're gonna find that in so many movies. You know what I mean? Like a retelling of a somewhat of another story somewhere. I mean, you can look at movies for the last 50 years and say, hey, there are elements of this in there. Hey, that was in the Bible, or hell, that was in a movie that came out in 1930. It's like, yes, there are elements of that. But to me, Avatar, when it came out, it was something, the animation alone was just like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. The story had me the entire time. You had actors that really got into that role, and I really believed that I was on another planet, you know, about this. Of course, the movie did have an agenda, but it didn't get in the way for me. You know what I mean? It did have a message to where it's like, we have, trashed our world to the point to where, our mother died a long time ago, talking about, Mother Earth and, all of that stuff. And yes, there is a message in the movie, and I'm fine with that because this story to me was just absolutely amazing. And I love this movie.
You're absolutely right. I also love the story of Pocahontas. Because
It's like, yeah,
that's exactly what the movie is. When you
yeah,
were talking
there
when you're
is.
talking about using the, like, elements of, I'm like, I just want to clarify. I do not hate Avatar. I was one of the people who watched it way too late
Mm,
after all the hype was out there. Because that's the thing. I've never heard anyone, like, really trash it. I don't think
whew,
I've ever heard anyone trash it visually. Because visually, the movie is stunning. Oh
it
my
is.
god! Like, getting in a pitch black room and putting it up on, like, if you got a big screen, or like if it's a really special thing, I've got a projector. So I'll like put on a projector, put like these headphones on, and it's beautiful to watch. And side, little side fact, it's one of my favorite places to visit in Disney World. If you've never been to Disney World and gone to Batu, dude,
I've
it's
never been to anything Disney in
or
my entire
not
life.
Batu, sorry, Pandora, dude. Go to if you love Avatar. And here's the thing, I'm gonna be honest, I love the Disneyland or the Disney World Land of Pandora
Mhm.
more than I love the movie. It's so gorgeous, man.
It's crazy, dude, because if I am to ever go to Disney World, which it's every child's dream, and I actually turned 46 today, and it's still a dream of
Happy
mine.
birthday.
Thank you. It's still a dream of mine, dude, to one day go to Disney World. But in all honesty, dude, if I go to Disney World, good luck getting me out of the Star Wars part of it. Like, seriously,
Well, see,
like,
here's man, we have a
good
whole
luck.
dude, that fucking Rise of the Resistance ride of Star Wars, bro, it's top 3 rides at Disney for me. It is
You're gonna
so fucking advanced. It's so good.
you're gonna catch me in a Jedi cloak drinking blue milk somewhere, bro, like with a lightsaber. Like
Dude, you could
you
do a
know,
whole day there, and like, cause you could
I
like,
do a whole month there.
you got your build your own droid like project. You got the build your own lightsaber project. You got Oga's Cantina. We
There
could
there's
different
probably
stream,
like
man.
there's gonna be like 20 little kids in there and one 46-year-old man building a lightsaber. Like, look, I don't care. Say what you want. I'm here to build me a lightsaber.
Bro, believe
That's
me,
happening.
you see more adults walking around there, because that's the thing. The people who grew up with it, they're
Mhm.
our age, man. Like, that's and the kids are just now getting it. But that's a whole different stream, man. We've only got we've been going for almost 10 minutes, only got one movie out.
All right, man. Give
All
me an
right.
honorable mention, Eric. What do you got,
Honorable
brother?
mention for me, Christmas Vacation. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
That's a good
Eh,
one.
I'll be honest. This was on my original top 5 list. But
Wow.
the more I thought about other movies, I'm like, I like that one more. The caveat, the reason this one got bumped down to an honorable mention is that it's really better to watch in the Christmas holiday,
Yeah, I don't
like
really
in the
find
holiday
myself
season.
watching this in like June or July.
I do.
Like
Oh,
I don't.
I watch it. I watch it year round. I really do. And this is what happened. I'm not gonna lie. I had my list down. I was talking to my wonderful fiance about our list, like what she would put on hers. And then she sped out a movie, and I'm like, holy shit, I didn't even think about that. And then I started looking, I'm like, if it came down to it right now, which of these movies would I rather watch? And I had to take this one off the list. But just to, really quick, so yeah, Christmas Vacation is my first honorable mention. I do just want to throw this out, and I'm going to try to do it for all of these movies that we talk about.
Mm,
Uh, Avatar, your first honorable mention, has an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah, whatever.
That's the audience score, and that's the thing. I always go with audience score because I don't give a fuck what critics say. Christmas Vacation has an 86 audience score.
Yeah. You, yeah, okay. I'm
And like I
sure
said,
that a lot of my movies will probably be in that range.
that's fine, man.
With
This is an
that,
entirely an opinion based question.
100%.
I'm not looking at this like, oh, well, this proves this is a good movie or proves it's not.
No,
That's
dude.
not about that. I'm just, when you said Avatar gets a lot of hate, I'm like, oh, it'd be interesting to see the audience score because once again, I don't give a fuck what critics say, but an
Yeah.
audience score is, that's over 100,000 people voted on this movie.
And
As
none of
a
them
as
were
a,
me. You know what I mean?
there you go.
And
So,
none of them were me.
but yeah,
Not
man.
one of them. Or you. At least I don't think.
Oh yeah,
I can't
I
speak
vote on
for you.
Rotten Tomatoes.
Never. Never
But
voted on any of them.
dude, Christmas Vacation, I watch it at least 2 times every Christmas season. It's my favorite Christmas movie of all time. There's just something about it, like it has all these laughs and fucking gags that are timeless. It's so quotable, and I don't know, man. It still has heart at the end of it. Still got a good story.
Yeah.
about family and like
Heart's
overcome.
important to me in a movie.
It really is, dude.
You know, and
And
I don't think a lot of people get that, dude. Like, a lot of people are like, "Ah, it was kinda boring." It's like, dude, it was building a story to something beautiful. Like, and not talking about Christmas Vacation, but just movies in general. Like,
oh, it
that's how you
100% is,
pull
man.
me in, dude. Give me emotions. You know what I mean? Like, make me feel something.
That's a common theme among the movies on my list.
Yeah, mine too,
So
100%.
so there you go. I'm not gonna ramble too much. We'll have more time for that when we actually get to our 10 out of 10s. But there's my first one, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Alright, my second honorable mention and my last honorable mention, Forrest Gump.
Oh, dude.
Forrest Gump, dude, like, if there were 6 movies that we did today, Forrest Gump would be on there,
Talk
100%.
about heart.
Yes.
Fucking Forrest Gump, 95% audience score, Rotten Tomatoes.
Forrest Gump, when it came out, as a kid watching it, I liked it. As an adult, it pulls at my heart every time I watch it. It really does it hits me right in the stomach every time. The story alone, what this guy went through, yet the amazing things, the heartbreak, and it was just so good, especially for its time. Like, you
And
remember when this came out, the CGI with him shaking hands with Kennedy, with him talking to Nixon. We had never seen anything like that before, and it was like it looks so good. And the randomness about where he appeared and what he did, playing for Bear Bryant at Alabama. Like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. Like, seriously.
you want to talk about emotion? The movie, the point in this movie that hits me every time, and like I'm not gonna say I cry, but I will say my eyes get a little watery,
Oh, yeah.
is um when she says, "This is my son Forrest, named him after his dad," and his response to that is like he goes, "Is he smart or is he?"
Yeah.
And kind of motions to himself, and that flies over a lot of people's head. But in that moment, you understand if you really listen.
Yeah.
Forrest knows he knows that he's not normal. He knows that there's something different about him intellectually. So it's not like he's oblivious to it. And it just, man,
Yeah,
ooh,
and I mean, let's
I'm
not
getting
forget the
watery talking about
yeah,
it here.
the humor of him too, because the first thing he does say before he says that heartfelt thing that you're talking about is, "He got a daddy named
Named
Forrest too?"
Forrest too?
You know? Like, it's
Yeah.
just like, that's the thing with him, man, and I think that life is a box of chocolates, you never know what you're gonna get, fits that movie so perfectly.
It,
Because randomness, dude, the randomness in that movie about how he was here, how he was there, one of the things that really gets me, dude, every time it gets me, it gets that stomach feeling along with the scene that you're talking about. There's a couple scenes in this movie that do that. It's when he said Bubba was gonna be a shrimp and boat captain, but instead he died right there by that river in Vietnam. Like, fuck, dude, I can relate to it, dude, being a military person and the friends you make in the military. They become your brothers, dude, and to be in that situation and to lose that and to know what I know about Vietnam from my father being in Vietnam, dude, it hits me every single time. And the same with his mom. He's sitting there like, she died, she got the cancer and she died on a whatever day it was. You know what I mean? It just goes from a conversation into that. And it's just like, you just dropped a big ass weight on my head, man. Like, and with Jenny, you died on a Tuesday. You gotta be freaking kidding me, dude. She's just dead.
and
Like, you
he goes out
finally
there and
got what you
talks.
wanted. And yeah, dude, that conversation at the headstone under their tree, like
Whew,
the
man.
symbolism of the birds at the end. You remember, you go back to, dear God, make me a bird so I can fly far, 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 far away from here. And then you see the birds at the end.
Dude, this is the problem with making these kind of fucking lists is because there's always like one or two that jump to your head immediately, right?
Yeah.
And then you get your list together, right?
Mm.
But then like hearing you talk about this, I'm like, fuck, Forrest Gump could have been on my list easily.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so
100%,
good.
man.
So good. And as I think I already said it, but 95% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes.
And that's Robert Zemeckis, correct?
Yeah, Robert Zemeckis directing.
Yeah.
Let me make
Crazy.
sure. Uh Director Robert Zemeckis. Yep.
Yeah.
That's fucking amazing. So good. Came out in 1994.
Yeah. I was in high school.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, man.
Yeah.
I'm about to throw one out here, and I want to preface this with the term recency bias because I just saw this movie for the first time. This movie just came out.
Okay.
And also,
I think I know where you're going with it because I loved it too. And the reason
no,
I didn't put it on there was
that's not it.
because of it being so recent.
It's not it. It's not Godzilla.
No, that's not the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, what are you
Mine has to
thinking?
do with wrestling.
Oh, Iron Claw?
Yeah.
No, Iron Claw isn't on there. I loved it, but it wouldn't even close to
That's the only
10 out
one
of
I
10
could
for
think
me.
that came out recently
This
that
is
I
really recent. Like I said, I'll get to it, but just know because if whoever listens to this is gonna fucking slam me for putting it on here, but
okay.
it was recent. I went on Valentine's Day with my fiance, and
Mhm.
we both had a fucking great time. Like, there's so much about the movie that I loved, and it's Lisa Frankenstein, dude. I
Never
had
seen it.
it just came out last
Yeah.
Thursday. Like, it's been out for a week.
Hmm.
It is I it's new, so I can't spoil anything.
Yeah. Yeah, please don't. I wanna
But
check that
dude,
out, especially if it's making your list like that. That's
d
crazy.
and like I said, it could be recency bias, you might hate it, but I don't know, just it was like a perfect combination of things. There are slight horror elements to it. There's a lot of comedy, a lot of teenage, angst because it is about like high schoolers. And by the name Lisa Frankenstein, you can tell like what the story kind of has to do with. Dude, I thought it was clever. I just fucking loved it. And the critics are tearing it apart. I don't know
Are they?
why. I could care less what they think.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it is not doing well in terms of critic reviews. Audience score is an 83% out of 100. So that's not bad.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there you go, man. Lisa Frankenstein. It's a 1000% rewatch every year for me.
Hell yeah, man.
All right, bro. Your what's your first 10 out of 10 movie? I'm so curious to hear this.
All right, let's get into it, man. The number 5 movie I picked, granted, not
In
my
any
number
order.
5, right?
Yeah.
I'm going with 2008's The Dark Knight, by Christopher Nolan.
Holy
Uh,
shit.
let's
It,
look at the cast of this movie alone. Let's start that, right? Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, Gary Oldman, Aaron Eckhart, Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, Cillian Murphy, Michael Jai White. That's to name a few people in this movie.
Eric Roberts is also in it too.
Yeah. This movie, when I went to see it in the theater, I didn't want it to end. I did not want this movie to end whatsoever. There are a few movies that I go to in a movie theater to where even if it's a great movie, I'm like, we need to wrap this up. You know, not this movie. I was at the theater in 2008 watching this movie like this is the craziest shit I've ever seen. Now, granted, there's a lot of conveniences in this movie, but I mean, you suspend belief when you talk about superheroes, right? You
Yeah.
don't go there for but believing that this is an actual thing. It's like, well, we're talking about a man who can fly, or we're talking about a man who can, you know, uh, do whatever he can do. Like in Batman's case, very convenient. Has a lot of toys, a lot of things that would never happen. But you suspend that belief, dude, for this story. Granted, with the Joker, it's like, man, you really had to have some prep time for all this stuff to happen. But at the end of the day, man, Heath Ledger did something with the Joker that we had never seen before.
And
This
do
is
you
coming.
remember the like backlash when it was announced? They're like, "Oh,
Oh
this
yeah,
this pretty boy
yeah.
gets picked to be the Joker."
Well,
Oh my god, dude.
and it even went as far as people blasting him for being in Brokeback Mountain and things like, is this the Joker that we want? And it's like, dude, when it was done, it was just like, holy shit! Like this was crazy. This to me brought now, despite everything I just said, brought some realism into the Joker character. Like
Mhm.
you could really see, like you look before him, you had Jack Nicholson playing the Joker, and yes, he was great as the Joker,
But he was
100%.
also really kind of just Jack Nicholson.
He was, even his name was Jack. It was Jack Napier. Heath Ledger's version of the Joker was like, this dude is crazy.
And
Like
you don't know where he came from.
oh, you have no idea, dude. Nothing in his pockets but lint and like dynamite or some shit like that, right? This movie to me, in terms of Batman movies, I put it in there with any of them. You know what I mean? And I will have that conversation, whenever I get to Batman stuff. But man, I just this is by far my favorite Batman movie, and one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, let alone movies, and one of my best theater experiences I've ever had. Well, that and Freddy versus Jason, but that's something different for
I
different reasons.
remember seeing this movie. This is back when midnight premieres were still a thing.
Yeah,
I remember going and seeing this midnight Thursday night, and oh my god, absolutely loved it.
yeah,
94%. This is an interesting one because it's 94% audience and a 94% critic score on
that's
Rotten
crazy.
Tomatoes.
You don't
Like
see that often.
you don't usually it's lopsided.
Yeah,
It's either lopsided, critics love it, audience is like what the hell, or audience loves it, critics say it's not a good movie. Um, but yeah, they both scored this really high. And dude, you're absolutely right. In
s-
terms of superhero movie, in terms of comic book movies in general,
yeah.
I would certainly put this up there with top 3 of all time.
And I'm telling you this, man. There's so many quotable Joker lines from this movie because we had never heard anything. And 2008, dude, how many people were like, let's put a smile on that face? You know what I mean? There were so many things that came from that.
I
And it was
remember
incredible.
I was in high school, and I remember hearing when this was being made.
Yeah.
Was I in high school? No, I wasn't. Hold on a second. Yeah, I was in high school when this was being made, and then um, sorry, fuck, hearing before class started, Heath Ledger died, and I remember distinctly one of the people sitting right next to me goes, "God, I hope he finished filming the Joker role before he passed away." That's a lie. That's how I found out he died. But I don't know. It's just a little tidbit
Wow.
about the movie. It's. I remember hearing he passed away before class, and that the only like response someone next to me had was, "I hope he finished filming the Joker."
That's crazy. I
Yeah.
remember a lot of people saying that the role killed him. Like before, when you just went by hearsay a lot and people, just talking in groups, talking about the role actually made him go insane. And,
Well, Jack
that's what
Nicholson
happened to him.
is quoted. This
Yeah.
is a quote. This isn't hearsay, but Jack Nicholson is quoted when someone asked him about it. He said, "I warned him."
Yeah.
Like
And I mean,
that's
it's possible. You know what I mean? Because think about the level that you have to put your mind on to be that person.
yeah, he apparently like secluded himself into a hotel room and like didn't speak to anyone, family, friends, or anything, and just like watched really dark things and journaled a lot. And when you hear Michael Jai White talk about it, because he was doing some podcasts and he was talking about it, and he's like, I remember first seeing Heath in makeup. He's like, wait, I get to there, um get to the call time, in wardrobe. We're filming a scene, and he's just standing off to the side, like full costume, full makeup, everything.
Mhm.
And he goes, we see him, and he's like, we're filming. And then I asked the director, I'm like, hey, so what are we filming after lunch? And he's like, oh, we're filming the same scene, but you got to film it from multiple angles. And he's like, is Heath even in anything today? And he's like, no, he's not. He showed up in full costume and makeup, and he wasn't even on screen.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
dude, he was dedicated, but fantastic number, fantastic 10 out of 10. I would agree with that one
Yeah.
without any rebuttal, dude. So good. Um, my number 5, and I've said this a lot already, but no particular order. My number 5 is Tombstone.
Oh, such a good
Fucking Val Kilmer, Kurt
Yeah.
Russell, Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton,
Yep.
dude. Tombstone. My opinion, best Western ever made.
I would second that.
Uh, dude, it's just I, s- Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday is one of the best performances of all time, in my opinion. He did that so well. And it's also so like the number of quotes that come from him, come
Your
from that movie in
Huckleberry. Yeah.
general. I'm your Huckleberry.
Yeah.
By Johnny Ringo. You look like someone just walked over your grave.
Yeah.
Bro, so
It's
good.
fantastic. It is.
So I don't even know what else to say about it. It was 1993. I remember watching this with my grandfather because he was a huge Western guy. He loved John Wayne specifically. He absolutely loved the Duke, but I remember loved Westerns. I remember watching this with him. And it was the first time I watched a Western where I'm like, I was just in it the whole time. Like most of them, I'm like, oh, these are all the same. I don't really care. I could get up and go to the bathroom while it's not a commercial, and I didn't care if I missed anything. This one, my ass was glued to the seat.
Yeah.
I was just could not wait to get back to it after the commercials.
I think the first time I saw this, I was in the military. And there was one of my neighbors in the barracks was like, "Hey, I'm about to watch Tombstone, Country Boy." And I was like, "I haven't seen it." He's like, "Man," he's like, "Take an hour and a half and come over here and let's watch Tombstone." And man, dude, that movie was freaking fantastic. Like absolutely fantastic. Doc Holliday to me in that movie was just on a different level than everybody else. So good, man. And I mean, you mentioned a little bit of the cast, dude. There's some more bangers in there. Like
Oh, dude, it keeps going, but those are
it's
like the main.
yeah.
That's the core group. But yeah,
I
dude,
mean,
there's so many.
dude from Terminator was Johnny Ringo. What's his name? Beam. Is it Beam?
Yeah, hold on. I can
But
tell you.
either way,
Michael Bean, yeah.
yeah, freaking fantastic,
Powers
dude.
Booth was also in it.
What's his name? Dude at the beginning. I always forget his name. Bad Santa was in it too.
Oh, Billy
Uh,
Bob Thornton,
Billy
bro.
Bob Thornton's in
That
there.
line where like he go, fucking Kurt Russell walks over to him and he's just like, "Can I help you with something?" He goes, "No, I just want to let you know you're sitting in my chair."
Mm,
And
yeah.
they have a conversation. Thornton goes, "Oh, I'm real scared." Kurt Russell goes, "Damn right you are. I can see that in your eyes.
He was gonna stand there and bleed.
Bleed. You're gonna do
It's
something,
so good, man.
dude." And speaking of Avatar, Stephen Lang was also in this movie.
Was he?
Yeah, he played Ike.
No shit. I never put that together until
That's
you said
Stephen
that.
Lang. That's the bad
Wow.
guy from fucking Avatar. Yeah, dude. The cast in this is just Billy Zane.
Wow.
Fucking Billy Zane was the actor as part of the troupe that came through.
Yeah. Hell yeah,
Michael
man.
Rooker. Michael
Yeah.
Rooker was in it, dude.
He was.
In terms of audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, it's tied with Dark Knight actually at a 94%.
That's awesome. And it belongs there, man.
Dude, it's
100%.
it's easily a 10 out of 10 for me. I would not change a single thing about this movie.
Yeah, no way.
So there you go. There's my first pick, man. Tombstone.
All right. Good one, man. Really good one. Number 4 for me. I hate saying the number because it's, I feel like I'm doing a
Just say
countdown
my
of
next
this.
pick.
Yeah, my next pick. 1980s by Irvin Kershner, The Empire Strikes Back.
I, I knew it. I
This
was talking to Chrissy beforehand. I was like, I know he's gonna have a Star Wars movie on there.
Empire, dude. Yes. This to me, 10 out. How many sequels surpass the original? How many? Not many. You could probably name on one hand how many sequels surpass the original. This movie, dude, to me will always be a 10 out of 10. I don't see anything beating this in terms of Star Wars. This movie to me, dude, it is Star Wars. You think about the amount of people that saw it. You have the reveal, and people forget how big of a reveal that was at the time. It was absolutely crazy.
Even the actors didn't know. Like
And it
Harrison Ford didn't know that till the premiere of the movie.
yeah, they had different lines. You know what I mean? They record yes. Yes, you are 100% right. The reveal's probably one of the biggest thing. You get to see Luke's journey, from the original, he was the farm kid all the way through, until he made that shot. You get to see more of the Star Wars world. You leave like the first one was in Tatooine and it was in space. It was very simple, simple sets for that. This you're on Dagobah, you're on Hoth, you're on Cloud City. Cloud City in 1980, that was freaking beautiful. And there's an image, dude, that anytime anyone says Star Wars, I picture Darth Vader standing there with Luke with his hands on his hips in Cloud City up those beautifully colored stairs with that foggy background, standing in front of his nemesis that he later finds out is his father. What a beautiful story, man. You get the dynamic between Luke and or Han Solo and Leia starts, their romantic relationship, and it leaves on such a sour note, man. You're expecting like there to be some conclusion, but there's not. It ends with them losing. Luke standing there with his hand cut off. Han's in carbonite somewhere else. They've taken away the main cast did not win. You can go into a lot of movies and be like, now how are they going to get out of this one? I know it's going to happen because you have main characters everywhere. So not this one, man. The Empire Strikes Back is a 10 out of 10 for me. And hell yeah, man.
In
Hell
terms
yeah.
of audience score, 97% out of 100. And
That's
there's more
crazy.
than 250,000 ratings. And
That's insane.
the critic score is a 95.
Oh wow.
So this is a very highly regarded. And in terms of Star Wars, and I'm not the biggest Star Wars guy. I'm not.
Yeah.
Openly admit it. I do enjoy Star Wars, mostly around this time. Some of the newer ones, I think they've gotten a bit away from the original meaning of the franchise.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick a favorite, this would be it. Easily, this
It's a
would be
good
it.
one. Yeah.
So damn good pick, man. And with a 97 and a 95, the world agrees with you.
Hey
Like
man, but
you
I'm
can't.
not on that list.
Oh,
Again, it's like,
you don't have to be, dude. You don't. You could say it's 100, but there's 250,000 people who have already gave it damn near 100%. So,
that's crazy.
all right, man.
What you
My
got, boss?
my next pick from 1984. We've talked about this pretty recently. Bill
Interesting.
Murray, Dan
Oh
Aykroyd,
yeah. Here we go.
Ghostbusters, man. Fucking the OG Ghostbusters,
Great
1984.
flick.
Perfect movie.
It's
I
great.
and like I said, part of my criteria when I say perfect movie, it's rewatchability. Can you
Yep.
watch it? Not every day, but can you watch it over and over throughout the year? And is there anything you would change about it if you could?
No.
No, wouldn't change a damn thing about this movie, man. It is so good. And like, I don't know, just like Bill Murray's deadpan delivery of stuff in this is just, dude, there's something to be said about Star Wars is a good example, and this is another good example. Things that started back then that are still going.
Yeah.
We're getting a new Ghostbusters this year. And it was a cultural phenomenon when it came out. Not nearly as big as Star Wars is.
Yeah.
But like, dude, it's just so good. I don't want to harp on each movie too much because we'll go
Yeah.
forever.
I agree, dude. But you have to mention when you mention Ghostbusters, the dynamic between the four Ghostbusters.
You
It's
can't really.
incredible, dude.
They're
It's
so good,
incredible.
and the simplicity
Yeah.
of the way it was. And we've talked about this before. And I saw a break because of a breakdown between the all female remake.
Mhm.
The simplicity of this script and like how they don't try to like sound smart, because that's something nowadays. Anytime there's a computer thing or a technology thing, when they're explaining it or giving exposition in the movie, they try to overcomplicate it to make it sound smart. He didn't do anything like that. They're just like, yeah, you got a nuclear generator strapped to your back. And like that scene when they're in the fucking elevator, when he flips it on and you hear it like buzzing to life, and you see the other two just kind of scooch away from him.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so simple, but it's so good.
Two in a
And
box, one in a hole. We be fast and they be slow. I love it, dude.
dude,
I love it.
Ecto One, like it's such a
Yeah.
beautiful car. Like everything about the movie is perfect, and that's why it's on my list, dude. Uh, before we move on, audience score of 88%, critic score of 95%.
Hell yeah, dude.
So still super highly rated.
Hell yeah.
There you go, man. That's my next pick. Ghostbusters original.
All right, dude. Moving on, and you spoke about awesome cars, and that's a perfect segue into my next movie, 1985's Robert Zemeckis' Back to the Future. You go into the DeLorean, brother, and you look at that. You've got Marty McFly, Dr. Emmett Brown, and still to this day, if you talk about remaking this movie, you're a dead man. You know, anybody that's like, if you remake this movie, you could, you see any little trailers online where people have concept trailers and like, this is great and all, but you don't
Don't do
touch
it.
Back to the Future. You know
They
what I mean?
kind of remade it, but they remade it into a stage play.
Yeah, that's fine. You know what I mean? And that's great. But dude, you want to talk about my childhood? You want to talk about it's Back to the Future, man. So much with this movie. Michael J. Fox freaking killed it as Marty McFly. You know, the story is absolutely amazing. What it'd be like to go back and see your parents at your age, you know, and to go through that and to go through all that stuff. Dr. Emmett Brown, what, dude? Oh, come on, man. Christopher Lloyd killed it as Dr. Emmett Brown. And you can put anybody in those two costumes, and everybody will know exactly who that is. It's
100% they
Marty
would.
and Doc. Marty and Doc, man. And you know, the later ones, you know, not as good as the original. The original to me holds the weight. It's the best one out of the three. This one is a 10 out of 10 for me. Some of it may be nostalgia. You know what I mean? Some of it may be for me being a kid. But this is a movie where I wouldn't change a damn thing, man. And I could watch this absolutely anytime. And the soundtrack to this movie alone,
Oh, I still fucking rock out to Huey Lewis in the News
dude,
because of this movie.
you can hear just that little, you know, that little, those little bells that, and you know exactly it's like that's Back to the Future.
Anytime I see a black Toyota truck with those KC lights on it, I'm like, oh, dude, it gets you. You know what you're watching, and I don't
A,
think it's just nostalgia.
a DeLorean, bro. You build a time machine out of a DeLorean.
DeLorean?
Come
Yeah,
on,
because
man.
I thought if I'm gonna do it, why not do it in some style?
You have to think, dude, like how popular did Back to the Future make a DeLorean?
I got a friend who has a DeLorean.
Probably because of Back to the Future.
It is.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
That's the thing. Like it is.
if you
Uh,
can afford a DeLorean, you know, you could probably afford a badass car, but you buy a DeLorean for a specific reason, and that's because of this movie.
dude.
100%.
And one of the reasons I say I don't think it's just nostalgia is because a critic score of 93% and an
Oh,
audience
wow.
score of 94% for Back to the
See,
Future.
I didn't even look at I probably should have looked at these. I just went off my, you know, in
Bro,
my head, my
I
movies here.
I'm gonna be honest. Here's what happened. I was like, okay,
Steel Book
dude, bro, you
trilogy.
got the box set there.
You already
What
know.
happened to me was I made a list of several, right? I made a list of more than the five we had. What I did was like, okay, these could all go on my list. And then in order just as a way of like kind of quantifying which one could go,
Mhm.
I took into consideration some scores because I'm like, they're even. They're even to me.
Okay.
What about the rest of the world? So I took that in consideration. Dude, this was on my list.
Was it really?
It was on my list. Dude, there's, of course, it's such a iconic movie.
Yeah.
Easily on the list. Dude, that's awesome. And that's something too. Like everyone you said so far, I 100% agree with you. This might be the first one I'm about to say where you don't agree with me, where you
Okay.
don't think it's a 10 out of 10. And that's Scream 1996. The original Scream movie,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is a 10 out of 10 movie. I know we don't talk horror too much here because we each
Yeah.
have our individual channels for that,
Right.
but this is the only horror on my list. I'll go ahead and say that.
Mhm.
Scream 1996, I think, was the perfect revitalization of the slasher subgenre. It changed the way horror movies, like it completely changed horror movies like after that. Like there's still movies today that follow the blueprint that Scream established. Ah,
Thanksgiving.
exactly.
Like when I watched Thanksgiving, I was like, this is Scream.
Bro, when I watched Thanksgiving, I was like, this is more Scream than the last two Scream movies we've gotten. But it just, like I said, it changed the game for horror movies at that time. I recognize it's not the first to do what it did.
Yeah.
It's not. It has elements of the original Psycho in it. So like, I know it's not the first to do it, but just something about it. It's a combination of, the kind of the downswing that we had in horror at the time because they weren't doing great. Um, and the time it came out, and just, and everything about it is perfect to me. I would not change a thing. I do watch it all the time. I rewatch the hell out of this movie. So yeah, I talk about Scream so much on my other channel. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it here. But for me, easy 10 out of 10. And yeah, wouldn't change a thing. Watch it all the time.
But
It's
again, it's 10 out of 10 to you. You know what I
and
mean?
that's
So,
that's the thing. And of the movies we've mentioned so far
yeah.
in our 10 out of 10s, this is the lowest rated. It's got a Rotten Tomato. It's got an audience score of 80%
Mhm.
and a critic score of 81%.
That's
So,
still, you're in the 80s, dude. But
dude, universally a good movie. However,
yeah.
for me, it is a perfect movie.
And that's awesome, dude. Because I guarantee my next movies won't be on everyone's list. I guarantee that. But they have
I'm excited to
special
hear.
special meaning to me. So let's take a trip, man. Let's take a trip to my next movie. Let's take a trip to the ocean. And let's look at Steven Spielberg's 1975 Jaws.
It was on my list. It
Let's
was
do
on
it,
my
dude.
list, man.
Roy Schneider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, dude. You put those three guys on that boat, you may have the best dialogue I've ever heard out of any movie at any time when Robert Shaw is talking about the Indianapolis. The way he paints that picture, dude, is both eerie and yet at the same time, I cannot look away from this man while he tells this story.
That story was a movie within the movie.
It was, dude. And to me, it is top two dialogues of all time out of any movie.
Okay, gotcha.
Not only that, Jaws, the movie, changed the way people got into the ocean.
Dude, Jaws the movie changed movies forever, not
I'm from
genres.
Ohio, bro. And whenever I go to the ocean, the movie Jaws pops in my head. I'm sorry. It does. I lived in Hawaii. We used to hang out at Waimea Bay on the North Shore. We used to jump off this rock into the water. Every time I jumped off of it, I'm like, I hope Jaws isn't down there. You know what I mean? Because that's what's in my Ohio mind when I'm at the ocean. This movie changed me. It changed the perception I had, and I know I'm not the only one.
Bro, that image of a person in the water and a shark looking up at them
Yeah,
is so fucking. You show anyone that image, Jaws,
that's
anyone
Jaws.
in the world,
That
anyone,
is Jaws.
and dude, Jaws, in my opinion, was the first blockbuster. Like when you think of movies and you think of blockbusters now,
Yeah.
going back in history, the first one I think ever was Jaws. I think
Yeah.
that was the first blockbuster. And even my favorite director of all time agrees with you. On a late night talk show, Quentin Tarantino says Jaws is a perfect movie.
Here's the thing, dude. The genius of not showing the shark. The buildup in your mind of what is doing this. Like, not a lot of people get that, man, with storytelling. Like, you're building and you're building and you're building, dude, until it pops up when they're on that boat. He's like, "What is that? 20-footer? 25. I think we're gonna need a bigger boat." Oh my god, dude! Like the shark next to that boat, like it was freaking fantastic. That movie, it builds, it builds, it builds, it builds, it builds, and then you get the climax, dude. Perfect movie. I wouldn't change a damn thing about Jaws, and I can watch it anytime.
Audience score of 90%,
Oh shit!
critic score of 97%.
Wow, wow. I see. I thought this one. If you would have asked me ahead of time, I would have thought it would have been like 80s
No,
because
dude.
because people are, it's not. It's more popular now for there to be all action all the time. Like people would get bored, but not me, bro. Like the storytelling in this is phenomenal. It goes from lighthearted to and that sound dun 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 dun. Dude, that's
Everyone knows that sound.
I you can't. There's no way. If someone's like, "What's that?" I'd be like, "Where have you been?" Like there are kids that know that
Yeah.
that know that, and that came out in the '70s. Hell, this
Yeah.
movie came out before I was born, and I'm 46.
Came out 75. Yeah, dude. 100% agree with you. It's a 10 out of 10. It was on my list. Yeah, dude. Like I said, it changed the way movies were delivered. Like it was the first big blockbuster.
Yeah.
100% agree with you there, man. All right, my next one. Um John Hughes flick, 1985. Emilio Estevez,
Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club, dude.
Yeah.
So you
Such a
want to
good
talk
movie.
about heart?
Yeah.
This movie has it. This movie I have been in love with since the first time I seen it.
Yeah.
I remember just no matter who you are, someone in that group of 5 people you could relate to. You
Yeah.
absolutely could. And dude, I don't even know what else to say about this movie. It's just fantastic. Like,
It is.
seeing them in their because they're all, they all have their cliques. They're all stereotypes in the beginning. Then that's all you think about. You got the jock with Emilio Estevez. You got the nerd with Anthony Michael Hall. You
Yeah.
got the goth chick with Ali Sheedy. By the way, for one of my first movie crushes was Ali Sheedy in that role. Loved her. Loved her. I was
I
never a Mark Reinhold kind of person. Or
I
Not
rem
Molly Ringwald, sorry.
I remember being so shocked in the difference that she looked between uh The Breakfast Club and Short Circuit. I don't know if you remember the movie Short Circuit with
Fish,
Johnny Five.
salmon, sushi,
Yeah. It's like
input.
I was like, "Wow, she's beautiful." I remember thinking that as a kid. I'm like, "That's the girl from The Breakfast Club. She is beautiful." You know,
She's also in for like a split second, Home Alone 2.
is she?
She's the flight attendant, not the flight attendant. She works at the whatever airline. She works at the airline desk in the airport when he's getting his ticket.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
dude, it's been a minute since I've seen Home Alone 2. I'd have to check that out. And one last thing I'd like to say about The Breakfast Club because you're right, dude. This is a fantastic movie.
10 out of
Uh,
10.
it meant more to me as an adult watching it as it did as a little kid. I don't think that I grasped the concept so much as a kid until I watched it later on. Not quite an adult, but high school.
Mhm.
It really hit me in high school when I rewatched it. Like, wow, this movie's way better now that I understand what the hell they're talking about. Because I remember seeing it in like 1986. I was 8.
Yeah.
I couldn't really grasp the concept of this movie. It wasn't until I went through, being in high school and understanding the message of this movie. And you're right, dude. 100%. 10 out of 10.
And
Fantastic movie.
just getting back to, so they all start as these stereotypes and you don't think anything more of them. You think that's just who they are. As the movie goes on, every single one of those characters has an arc, has a progression, and you learn that none of them are really the way they come off.
No.
None of them are. And you hear the story, but Judd Nelson's character story, like, yeah, he's the hardened, tough guy. You hear the shit he has to go through at home. You hear the story of Emilio Estevez and his character and how he's this big dumb jock. and then how he was, what he did to be there, and how much he regretted what he was doing, and how much he was sorry for it. And
Just to please his father.
exactly.
Yeah.
And dude, it's just there. When you mentioned Heart earlier, the first movie on my list that came to mind was this movie, because I'm like,
Yeah.
there is so much there with every one of these five characters. They're all so distinguishable from each other, yet they all have this thing in common. And it's a beautiful story, man.
Yeah.
10
It
out of
is.
10, Breakfast Club.
And
And
it kind of broke my heart there, man, at the end where it's like, well, what do we do Monday? And then we're like, we go back to the way we were. I can't really be your
and that's the
friend.
thing. You can't they can't, because they're so constrained by the social cliques of the time. Dude,
Yeah.
it's a, a beautiful ending, but the tomato meter is the critic score, an 89%. Audience score of a 92% out of 100. There you go, man.
Fantastic.
Breakfast Club.
All right. This is our last one.
No,
Uh,
oh yeah, you're right. We are on the last one. Oh
this
gosh.
is our last one. And this one, I may lose you on this one, but
We'll see. We'll see, man.
this one for me, and I want to talk a little bit about this one too.
Take your time, dude. We got
Um,
plenty of time.
my number one or my next pick is Richard Donner's 1978 Superman. Uh, this movie to me, it's my first movie, like my first movie that I would rewatch. I've seen this movie 500 times at least. As a kid, I used to watch it 3 or 4 times a week. Going back and watching it as an adult, seeing the things I didn't appreciate as a kid. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the score from John Williams. Instant recognizable um, theme song was Superman.
Didn't he also do the scores for the
Star
Star Wars?
Wars.
Yeah,
He
I was about to
did.
say. I
Yeah,
didn't know he
he's
did the score for this.
yes, unfreaking believable. When this movie came out, as a kid, I remember the poster saying, "You'll believe a man can fly."
And
Uh,
you did.
you did, dude. For 1978, it's just like still. I watched it about 3 weeks ago. It still looks amazing. It looks fantastic. And Christopher Reeve, he came in for this part and he was skin and bones. And they're like, no, you're gonna have to get bigger. You're definitely gonna have to get bigger. They put him on a training regiment with David Prowse. Now, I don't know if you know who David Prowse is.
I do not.
Uh, he played Darth Vader. He was the man under the suit,
I was about
playing
to
Darth
say.
Vader.
Did
He built up so big for this role. The dynamic. The first, let's talk about some of the most quotable lines in this movie that really stick with me. Like Clark is a kid when Jonathan dies. There's so much weight and when he's standing there looking off talking to his mother and he says, all those things I can do, all those powers, and I couldn't even save him. And it's just like, wow, man, the weight of that, as a kid, it was like, man, that's cool. As an adult, it's just like the weight on uh his shoulders, dealing with this, trying to keep it from people, knowing he has all these abilities, but all those abilities didn't translate in him being able to save his father. You know, a tragedy of any Superman because it's lore and all the Supermen that come out that Jonathan dies in one way or another. Kind of like Peter Parker, and Uncle Ben. It just he there's nothing he can do. Um, and something Marlon Brando said in this movie, because he played Jor-El, and I'll go over the cast in a minute. He's talking about, Clark being his kid, and he talks about, he says, "You will make my strength your own. You will see my life through your eyes, as your life will be seen through mine. The son becomes the father becomes the son." And it's just like, holy shit. Like any father, looking at their kid, that is that's weight, man. The dialogue in this movie is so far beyond what this movie just is. You know, people look at it like, oh yeah, it's Superman. It's pay attention to this movie. Look at the cast: Christopher Reeve, Gene Hackman, Margot Kidder, Ned Beatty, Marlon Brando. It's like y'all really brought this together to make a Superman movie in 1978. You put forth a superhero that laid my foundation for superheroes. Every superhero movie that's ever come out, I've compared to this. Every superhero that's ever come out, I've compared to Christopher Reeve as Superman. You're talking to a person that when he was a kid wore a cape everywhere he went. You know, I had a freaking cape on. When I was a kid, I had blonde hair and I was pissed. You know, I wanted black hair, dude, because Superman had freaking black hair. The only one that had blonde hair was Aquaman, and I wasn't about to be Aquaman. That was not freaking happening. The seriousness of this movie, the sheer uh the anger you see in Superman and the comedy aspect of this movie. You look at Ned Beatty as Otis and you're just like, "Oh my god, dude, you are." He has a line in this movie where he's wanting an area of his own when they take over the world. They blow up California. He's like, just a little spot of land. I want to call it Otisburg. And Gene Hackman's like, Otisburg? Otisburg, you idiot. Like he is the buffoon of this movie. But yet it is so good. And I cannot not talk about the dialogue between Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder on top of the apartment. It flows so seamlessly. It's just brilliant. I mean, 100% one of my favorite movies of all time, if not my favorite movie of all time, Superman 1978.
It's a damn good one. I'm going to be honest, I have not watched this one in years, and I've only seen it a single time. And when I say years, I mean it's probably been like 20 years since
The
I've seen this movie.
the score alone is something I can sit here while I'm editing or working on something and just put it on and listen to it. And to me, with this being my favorite movie, I can point out, just hearing the music points of the movie. Like, oh, this is this part. This is this part. And it's just so good. John Williams killed this score for this movie. Oh yeah, man.
Like I said, I'm gonna have to rewatch it now. This is the first one that you've said where I'm like, I don't think it's on my list, but but
What'd you
it's I
get?
mean, it's what
What did this one get score wise?
audience score of an 86 out of 100
Oh
and
yeah.
a critic score of 94.
Oh shit. Wow. Hell
Yeah,
yeah,
so the
man.
critics rate this at the same level as I think that's the same level as Dark Knight, right? Were they
Oh,
84?
Dark Knight? I don't remember. I can
Yeah,
look it
I
up.
mean, critic score of 94% is fucking outrageous, dude. That's a great movie. Um,
Yeah.
and great pick. Like I said, it wouldn't quite make my 10 out of 10 list. I've only seen it once. I'll have to give it a rewatch tonight or sometime.
Yeah, make sure you watch the uncut version. It's longer. It's almost a 3-hour movie.
Oh,
But
jeez.
it's definitely worth it. And oh, fuck, I almost forgot, dude. I cannot leave out the part where the helicopter where Lois is falling and so is the helicopter. And
He's got to
Superman
say
comes
both.
up and grabs her and he's like, "I got you, miss." And she said, "You got me. Who's got you?"
You
And it's just like that dude is so freaking iconic. And first time anyone had ever seen that and believe because you got to think they made a movie of Superman where in the past all they had was a TV show and radio shows.
Mhm.
That was it. That was it. And they came out with this. And I'll constantly Man of Steel came out. I loved Man of Steel, but it wasn't Superman 1978. And don't get me wrong, I love it. DCEU, my favorite movie, Man of Steel,
Oh,
right?
100%. Me too. Man of
My
Steel is
favorite.
amazing.
But there's just something it didn't have that this movie had. Christopher Reeve's on-screen presence as Superman is by far, dude, to me, just it can't be touched. And some of that may be nostalgia as well, too. 100%.
If and I'm gonna be completely honest here, completely transparent. If I had to pick one of those two, I would pick Man of Steel. But I didn't have the connection you had to the original Superman,
Yeah.
excuse me, in the beginning. So that it Not saying it is nostalgia. I'm just for personally for me, like I said, I would pick Man of Steel because I saw that when it came out, and
Oh, yeah.
you're absolutely right. In the DCEU, it is absolutely my favorite movie of them.
It's fantastic.
And I remember him that point in Man of Steel where he sees Jonathan about to get swept up by that tornado, and Jonathan was, he's just like no, shook his head, and you're like, your heart is breaking inside, and
Yeah.
he has it's the same, the same feeling, like all the power he has, he could have saved him, but his dad would rather die than have him exposed to the world.
The amount of debates I've had with friends over that scene on how they were like, "It's so stupid. He should have did it anyway." It's like you're missing the whole point of what happened there.
Yeah,
You're
yeah, they
missing
are.
the sacrifice. Like it was sad and it was amazing. And
It's
yeah, dude,
beautiful.
it was 100%.
Uh, but okay, yeah, man, great list there. Great top five. Like I said, you 4 out of 5 of yours, I would agree 100%. Like I said,
Oh yeah.
Superman would be the only. For me, my final pick, 1987, Robin Wright, Carrie, Carrie. I'm always confused on how to pronounce his last name. Is it like Elwes or Eluse? Gary
I don't know.
Elwes, Mandy Patinkin. I'm gonna see how far I gotta go to get it. Fred Savage, Billy Crystal, Andre the Giant,
Oh, Princess Bride.
fucking Princess Bride.
Yeah.
It is the perfect movie. Hands
It's good.
down, perfect movie. You want anything you want in a movie, you can find in some aspect in Princess Bride. You got comedy, you got adventure, you got a love story, you got frightening scenes, you got some like not paranormal, but like some sci-fi stuff with the whole soul sucking thing.
Yeah.
You got sword fights. Dude, it, anything you want in a movie, you can find in Princess Bride. And you talk about heart, man, it's got it. It's got it through the entire movie. And the thing about it, the funniest thing to me is you. It's actually like the entire movie you're watching is actually a like movie inside of a story. It's a story within a story because it's actually being told to this kid by his grandfather. And it's the thing, the kid's sick, and his grandfather comes over to read him this story. And in the beginning, he's like, I don't know. The kid's like, I don't really want my grandfather to like read me a story. I'd rather just play video games. And then slowly, the kid is like, wait a minute, what? That's the end?
Yeah.
And then the kid is into it. And man, just everything about it. I cannot say enough good things about this movie. I could do an entire hour podcast talking about this movie.
It's kind of the way I am with Superman. Like
Dude,
I literally can sit here and talk to anybody about it.
dude, you know what? If you want to, I will do one of those with you. I'll rewatch the movie, study it, do everything, and we can do one of those. But we also have to do it for Princess Bride
Hell yeah,
and,
man.
and break it down because, God, this movie is just the acting, the dynamic of the roles, and like, there's one part in this movie that kind of gets me and like chokes me up every time because, as you know, what is Mandy Patinkin's whole Inigo Montoya? What is his whole goal in this movie?
Revenge.
He wants to find the six-fingered man to avenge his father's murder, right? The point in this movie where they get into the castle and he discovers the six-fingered man, and he walks up. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. He finds him, and the guy runs off. There's a point where he runs behind a door and he locks it. And Fezzik is off doing something else, fighting like, 4 or 5 other people. And Inigo is so desperately trying to get in this door. And the way he is yelling, and it's such a minor thing, but the way he is yelling for Fezzik to come help him, and you think he's dying. Like it's literally killing him inside that he cannot get in there to avenge his father's death. Man, it's the perfect movie. It's a 10 out of 10. That's
Oh, yeah,
that's why
man.
it's on the list. And if you had to give me if I had to pick like one movie to watch every day for the rest of my life, it would be this movie
That's awesome.
because it
Hell yeah.
has everything in it. It really does. And in terms of scores here, a audience score of 94 out of 100
Oh,
and
yeah.
a critic score of 96 out of 100.
That's awesome.
Man, it's an absolutely beautiful movie.
Indubitably.
Yeah. Bro, I dressed up as Fezzik for a it wasn't on Halloween, but it was like at the college I went to, there was like a week of Halloween thing where
Mhm.
every day that week you dressed up, and I dressed up as Fezzik. I carried around a little jar of peanuts. Anybody want a peanut? Dude, it's just yeah, inconceivable.
Mm.
You keep saying that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. There you
It,
go, man.
it's yeah, that definitely. I really enjoyed The Princess Bride too, and a lot of quotable stuff in it too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I just I do not suppose you would accept help, especially since I'm just waiting up here to kill you. Well, that does put a damper on our relationship. I hate waiting.
Dude, I think that all these movies we talked about today are just fantastic freaking movies. Like
Okay,
seriously,
so
it's a
4 out of your 5 would go on I would agree 10 out of 10. How many of my lists would you agree are 10 out of 10?
3. I
3.
would put 3 out of the 5 on there.
So you
Scream, I wouldn't
no?
put on there, and Princess Bride would fall just short because I'd have to put things like Forrest Gump ahead of it just because of that, that feeling
Well, I'm
that I
not
get from
like
it.
I'm not considering that. Like I'm not when I think of your list,
Uh-huh.
I'm like I'm not thinking of it a way with like which one of mine would it knock out. I'm saying
Yeah,
if I were to have 10 spots instead of 5, which of yours would go on that 10? So,
yeah, yeah.
I got you.
I would say 3. Like Princess Bride to me, like it was a good movie. I loved it. But I never really thought about it as a 10 out of 10. And as much as I love slasher movies, I love Halloween. I love Friday the 13th so much, but I don't feel like any of those movies belong with the movies I talked about today. I just don't like as far as, like quality and stuff like that because as much as I love them and I can sit here and talk about Halloween all day and Halloween is my favorite slasher movie of all time, the original Halloween. But dude, honestly, in the list of movies that have come out in my lifetime that I've seen and some before, Halloween would probably be in the 15 to 20 section. Like it's tough, man. It's really tough because you want to put those movies that you love, like because I love horror so much. But can I honestly make a debate to say that Halloween is better than Jaws? Can I make a debate to say that Halloween is better than Back to the Future? The Dark Knight? I can't, because in my opinion, they're not. Like there are downtimes with slasher movies that you don't really get in these movies because the stories are so good and they make me feel things that slashers in general don't make me feel. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to explain,
Oh,
you
dude,
know.
I get it, and I think something, and I I'm gonna say this while having a
Yeah.
slasher on my top 5 10 out of 10 list, or and I have no problem with it being 10 out of 10 for me because I think it is. However, with something like Halloween, Halloween is without a doubt a genre film. It
Yeah.
fits and it only is in that genre. When
Yeah.
you talk about things like Empire Strikes Back, Forrest Gump, Superman is a genre film, yes, but those are genre like they don't it doesn't matter. Like yeah, you could classify it if you tried, but it has so much more than that. Like if you were to say, "Oh, Star Wars, Empire is just a sci-fi movie." Bullshit. Man,
Yeah,
it's
well, you
got fucking everything in it.
you could even make that argument for Superman because it's also a love story.
Yeah, and that's the
It's
thing. It's
family. It's love for your family. It's love for falling in love and protecting the person. It's It's so much, and you hit the nail on the head, dude. Like it is like Halloween is genre specific. Like I
It's
would have
only horror.
take away horror from Halloween, and what's left?
Nothing. Like that's the thing. And with Scream, I feel like I do feel like there's more than just horror because
Mhm.
you have like this coming of age thing, you have grief, you have loss because Sydney's dealing with her mother's
You have
murder.
comedy,
You have comedy in there. I feel like
yeah,
Scream, and that's one of the reasons I put Scream over the original Halloween. I'm
yeah,
gonna be honest because of these. I get more than this. I get these things out of this movie that I don't get out of other slashers, even though they have come before it.
yeah,
But I think that's a common thread. If you look at these 10 out of 10 movies, all the ones on our list,
yeah,
you get more than one genre or more than one thing. It's you could classify it if you tried, but you're always going to be like, well, but it also has this. Like if you try to say Avatar is just it's just a sci-fi movie. Bro, you what are you talking about? There's a whole thing with like nature and fucking loving the planet and like honoring your ancestors and
and it's a
falling at
love story.
yeah, like dude,
Yeah,
there's so much to it. And I think that's a common thing here. Like if you look at
yeah,
any movie we listed, there's so much more. It's not just a simple genre flick. There's more heart to it. There's more depth. Like there's so much beneath the surface of
yeah.
these movies. And I think that is one of the things that makes them great.
It is. It is. It's you said it, man. 100%. You do because you can take away something from you could take away. I mean, look at Jaws for Christ's sakes. I mean, the amount of things you could take away from that and still have things left over to say, "Holy shit, like
Mm,
this is
yeah,
unbelievable."
Princess Bride. You could take the love story completely out of Princess Bride. You still got a fucking adventure flick.
Yeah,
You still got sword fights. You
yeah,
still got you still got a grandfather trying to bond with his grandson.
yeah,
Like, dude, there's so much there. And dude, this is such a good list. This is such a fun. I'm glad we thought of this on the
yeah.
last. I don't know when we thought about it, but I'm glad we
When we
did.
were doing Reacher season 2, we talked about it afterwards.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
that's when we did it. Yeah,
And I'm glad. And here's an idea to throw out. Maybe I can throw it out now on the podcast, or I could throw it
sure.
out later. How would you feel about doing a five? I don't want to say worst movies because I feel like that's a disservice to the movies, but disappointing movies. Like the ones where you were so hyped for them or so
And they
excited,
let
and
down.
it was
Yeah,
the biggest letdowns. Would you be
yeah,
cool doing a like five letdown movies?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
could.
all right, dude. There's our next episode right there. Our five biggest letdowns.
Yeah. God, that's an easier list to come up with than this one was. It's like, how do we narrow this down to 5? But I can do it. Hell yeah, man.
All right, man. This is so much fun. And
Yeah,
fuck, that's on your list. That's a hell of a good list.
yeah. It's yours too, man, and well thought out. And the good thing about it is, man, everybody's list for this would be different. You could ask 100 people, and you're gonna get 100 different lists, and that's why that
You would
makes this
get
so
five
much
like
fun.
if you asked 100 people this, you would get 500 different movies, I bet. Or
Yeah,
at least 400 different movies.
yeah,
I guarantee Empire would be on there more than once though.
yeah, and probably Back to the Future.
And
Feel
I
like that.
guarantee Princess Bride would be on there more than once.
Yeah, I bet it would be, man. It's again, man. These movies are great, dude. It's funny though because and I'll just say this because it'll be fast. You look at movies that are fantastic, and then you look at movies that you love as well, and it's just like what is one of my favorite movies, and it's not on those lists. It's not Hot Tub Time Machine. I can watch that movie anytime I want to. Like it has so many things that I love because I grew up as a kid in the 80s and it's about, middle-aged people that go back to themselves in the 80s and how would they, be different mixed in with a bunch of ridiculous comedy.
Fucking Lugal.
Yeah, Lugal. Like, dude, and it comes out and it's just like this movie not only made me laugh, but it kind of gave everybody always wonders, what would I do different if I could go back? Like what would I do different? And this just happens to fall into like my age bracket. You know what I mean? And going back to that time. And it's just like, man, I love that movie so much. They'll be like, "Well, it's flawed," and I'll be like, "You goddamn right, it's flawed." And I love every flawed minute of this movie because it puts a smile on my face every time I freaking watch it.
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah,
Hell
dude,
yeah,
it's
man.
it's so good, and that's the thing. When we were discussing this, it's like the rules, or you're not really rules, guidelines for picking the movies. It's like, well, I could pick something that I think is a perfect movie, and you're absolutely right because it's like, oh, I love this. Do I
But it
really think it's a perfect movie?
no,
And
it's
it
flawed, but
there
you
there
love the flaws.
exactly, and that's why
Yeah.
it's not perfect, but its imperfections make it better. Uh,
Yes.
So, dude, I get it. I get it. I had several of those movies where I had to seriously contemplate to myself, like, do I think this is perfect? And
Yeah.
dude, so good. Such a good list, man. Such a good idea for this. I am so happy we did it.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Chrissy before we started recording, like, dude, I'm really curious what his list is gonna have. And I told her, I'm like, I know there's gonna be a Star Wars movie on there. I didn't know
Oh, yeah.
which one, but I knew there was going to be a Star Wars on there. Other than that, I had no clue what else you were going to get.
Yeah,
I,
Empire is gonna be on there, you know?
dude, it was good, man. Uh,
It's hilarious though because if you made me rank Star Wars movies and the way I enjoy them, you know, Empire might not be number 1. So,
New Hope,
it's funny how that works. Yeah.
New Hope would
No.
be one.
No. No, no, no. Revenge of the Sith.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that has a lot to do with the Clone Wars and Rebels, building that prequel, story and, you know, that being the culmination and the end of all of that. It's just something that's grown on me over the years. Is Empire a better movie? Yes. Enjoyability-wise,
Yeah, I was
if
about
I
to say,
were holding the 2, it's like, which one am I dropping in the DVD player first, you know?
I find that people struggle comprehending the differences because when you
Yes.
say something's perfect, doesn't mean you got to like it. Like, I understand
Yeah.
there's things that are perfect movies. It's just not my thing. It's not my style. Like, I
Right.
can recognize something is great, something is a masterpiece,
Yeah.
and still not enjoy it.
Well,
Like,
it's you could look at movies like The Godfather. Great movies, but they're not something I can put on constant rewatch.
yeah, and The Godfather. I was thinking about The Godfather. It's funny that you mentioned The Godfather because I had a fun fact when you brought up Dark Knight, and I forgot to say it. But now that you brought up The Godfather, that's the second half to that fun fact. Two times in history, there's been actors receive two different actors receive Oscars for playing the same character. Batman. So The Dark Knight, both Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix got Oscars for playing the Joker.
Mhm.
And then in terms of good Godfather, Marlon Brando and Robert De Niro both got Oscars for playing Don Corleone.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's the other half of that fun fact. That's only time in history it's happened.
Hell yeah, man. That is
So
freaking awesome.
so there you go, man. And I think that's a good way to wrap this thing up. Hell of a
Yeah.
good conversation. Hell of a good conversation.
This is one of those conversations that could go for 3 more hours. You
Dude,
know, it could.
I'm looking at my phone here, like, we could throw one more in there. But
This was
no,
so much fun, dude.
dude, we should wrap this up. I'm
Yeah.
really am enjoying talking other genres. It's been such a welcomed change from our individual channels,
Yeah.
and talking strictly horror. So yeah, thanks so much for this conversation, man. It's been wonderful. And with
Yeah.
that, I think we'll wrap it up. I have been Eric,
And Michael,
and this is the Silver Screen Banter Podcast. We will catch you next week. Thank you so much for still watching or still listening all the way to the end here.
peace.
Peace.